Oh man, your sinus is acting up. Maybe you caught a cold from the
Well, no,
rain.
no, it gets no cold like that. Just I have, I basically have had a deviated septum for pretty much most of my life. I
Oh,
had my nose operated on once back in the mid '80s,
mm.
and the doc's like, "Well, I'm glad that you're done competing." He says, you should this should be good for the rest of your life. I said, "Who said I was done competing?" He says, "Well, I'll probably see you again down the road."
Oh
So,
man.
so I mean, I I breathe so heavily that most bipolars were always thinking that, oh, I've got him. He's running out of gas. I huffed and puff like a locomotive, but it's kind of going, oh, I'm going to keep on going. But I'm like, I'm just breathing out of my mouth because my mouth breathing. But even when I sleep at night, half the time I'll wake up in the morning and like, man, my throat's, kind of dry, raw, and stuff like that because of just having a rough night's sleep. So,
I got you.
but
I
it's
got
yeah,
you.
that's.
All right.
But if I do like a search with some kind of a mental ellipsis, something like this, whatever it is, that mental ellipsis helps open up the nasal passages, and I breathe better. So
Okay.
I
Okay.
go to my Dollar Tree store and I get my little Dollar Tree fix. Yeah, but they don't have the right to be called Dollar Tree anymore because due to Bidenomics, which isn't working.
Uh-huh.
Now the dollar store is the $1.27 store.
Yep. You can say that again. Yeah. Yeah. Oh
That
man.
would be just too redundant here. So okay, let's going on to more positive things. Let's talk about what we want to talk about.
There you go.
We don't
All
have
right.
you
So
don't have enough time to fix the country and the stupidity that it's being run by right now. So
yeah, there's not enough time in the world for that. All right. Okay. So let's see. Uh,
did you want to redo your intro or do you
yeah,
just
my
want to
intro.
just run?
Yeah, I'm gonna redo the intro.
Okay.
Just send it up. All right. Hello, everybody. Lorenz Dean here on behalf of Don Devine Media, and this is Coliseum Culture Insight on none other than Dan the Beast Severn. So let
Coliseum
me let
Insight.
me give.
I did not hear that the first time. Coliseum Insight. What does that mean?
Yes.
Is it like we're back in the gladiator Roman days here right now and the Coliseum and we have to look to Caesar to does does the does the combatant get to live or does he die? Is it a secret ballot that nobody gets to know as to what his fate will be? You know.
That's it. What we doing is where I got the name from is during the '80s, early '80s, they had a home video series called Coliseum Home Video. So when people couldn't afford the pay-per-view back then, they waited until the VHS came out. So that's where people was able to get all their tapes and stuff, or all the pay-per-view events and big events during the '80s and '90s, and probably super early 2000, maybe when VHS finally made its final phase. So what I'm doing with this is doing an interview with legends during the VHS era, as far as during the '80s and '90s and stuff like that. So just continuing that whole Coliseum collection
Yeah,
type
we're
of
gonna.
classic
I'll
thing.
say that's from the UFC. Yeah, I think that was what 1909. Yeah, 90. Well, yeah, 90 December 93 was the very first episode of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Most people don't know that, so I would just simply say 1994 and beyond because I think it was only one show in either November or December of 93 that took place, and then everything else was 1994 above it, and it's about every 3 months they had a show, yeah, 4 times a year. So, and they're
Mhm.
all, yeah, if
Well,
you didn't watch it live, because again, the pay-per-view was not that great of a signal at that point, but it was always coming out on the VHS tape, not the VHS, but it all came out on the videotape, and it was always be at the Blockbuster Video. So people,
there you go.
all kinds of dudes, because do you even see a Blockbuster anymore? You know, It's
No.
they're vanishing. Again, there was one that used to be in Coldwater, Michigan, but the last I think it's been gone bye. And even the more ironic part is, where were those UFC tapes? There was right next to the porn. So people are like, look, am I looking at porn or am I looking at the UFC? So that was a little bit more comical.
There you go. All right. So let me give the fans a brief introduction of your career, and then we'll just get
Okay,
into it.
there you
All
go.
right. So, okay. Daniel Dwayne Severn, born June 8th, 1958, nicknamed
Well, it's
the
actually
Beast.
June 9th. I've had, there's a lot of times, a lot of stuff has never been fact checked with me. So it's June 9th. I should know at least when I was born.
Oh wow.
June
Okay,
8th,
I
June 9th.
stand corrected.
I have a lot of people that they'll send me Facebook happy birthday on the 8th, and then again I have a bunch more people give me happy birthday, and then I go, okay, I get 2 days for birthday. That's all right. I enjoy it.
There you go. It's a
Go
win-win
ahead.
for you. But no,
Sorry there,
thank you
buddy.
for the correction. So, born June 9th, 1958, nicknamed the Beast, is an American professional wrestler, retired mixed martial artist, and amateur wrestler. A UFC Hall of Fame member, Severn is considered one of the leading pioneers of mixed martial arts and the first true world-class wrestler to compete in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. He is best known for his success in the early years of the UFC, where he became the first UFC Triple Crown champion in history by winning the UFC tournament, the Ultimate in 1995, and UFC Super Fight champion. Severn is also competed in King of the Cage, Pride, FC, Cage Rage, and WEC, and Rings and MFC, and holds a professional MMA record of, and let me know if this is correct, Dan, of 101 matches, fights, 19 wins, and 7 losses. Is that correct, or
Well,
there's?
no, I mean it's the fact checkers of like Sure Dog, Full Contact Fighter. They did not start until like a couple years after the UFC even started. Uh, and they only ever watched one company, that was the UFC. Once the UFC broke bread, there were other organizations that popped up as well. So you could probably very safely add another, I'll say, 10, 15 matches to my career. And I'll put that on the conservative side because there were sometimes I was doing 3, 4 matches. No, yeah, 3 to 4 matches a month sometimes
Really?
on top of doing professional matches. So it's like my months were always busy to where almost every weekend I was doing something. I might be doing professional wrestling this weekend, and then I'm climbing into cage next weekend. I might be teaching an amateur wrestling thing the day after a cage fight, or working with law enforcement. I had a very crazy schedule, but a lot of that was just due to the UFC was not paying that well at that time. I tell people I made the most money at that time, but I won the Triple Crown champion. I won three purses there. So I won a $50,000 purse, I won an $80,000 purse, and I won a $150,000 purse. Now the $150,000 purse sounds like a lot of money. I won that, and I think around I'll say December of whatever year that was, and by April 15th, I'm writing a check to the IRS for almost half of it. I'm thinking, you know, the IRS robbed me and didn't even have to lay a hand on me. They didn't have to even rough me up in the cage. They just simply just stole from me,
Oh
as far as
man.
I'm concerned. So, but
Oh wow.
I had to learn by getting myself better legal advice and getting better CPAs and stuff like that around me, because there's a lot of athletes, no matter what the sport is on the pro level, football players, basketball players, hockey players, the list goes on. There's a lot of athletes that they're good at their craft, but they're not good at how to save money, how to invest money, how to keep Uncle Sam, who I've never met, and he's never done anything for me, but he sure does like to stick his pocket into his hand into my pocket. Okay,
Right.
so That's where again
Well,
I don't try to come off as being anti-government, but I don't like the overreach of what our government has become.
oh yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely agree. So, well, let me ask you this. Now that you mentioned that, do you feel like the younger generation of athletes have a better hold on their finance than what the athletes of yesteryear had, as far
You
as in
know,
the 80s?
I would have to look at that at a per individual basis because you still have athletes that they may squander their money because they're not making
Mhm.
good decisions. They may not have some of the best people surrounding them. Um, One thing that you also will find is the moment that you win a windfall of money, all kinds of people come out of the woodworks to say, "Hey, Frank, you're my bestest buddy. How about I got a great investment for you." Somehow it involves
Oh,
them and something that
yeah.
they're doing, of which now they want it that way they can give up their job and basically live off of your money.
Oh
That's
boy.
but that you know I, that happens a
That's
lot.
the nature of the beast.
Well, that is the okay. That good one. But on that note, though, I always like to tell people where that ring name came from. It came from the legendary NFL Hall of Famer Jim Brown. Jim Brown was one of the play-by-play commentators for the Ultimate Fighting Champs early on because they were looking for notoriety. So, Jim Brown, one of the toughest running backs in the history of football. I mean, they brought him on board, and he's a guy that gave me the ring name the Beast because he had when he met me outside the cage, he didn't know I was one of the competitors because I showed up wearing a sports jacket, a tie, and wearing my glasses. Everyone thought I was somebody's manager, and I had like Al Snow with me. The professor Al Snow. He's wearing the tank top. He's got some tattoos, stuff like that. They all thought he was the fighter. I'm his manager until they said we need all the fighters up to the front table because they used to do these conferences where you have 8 fighters up there, and then they'd have one of the staff, like Dana, basically he narrates it all there from the podium, and then the various athletes would they'd have a little name card in front of them, but then they'd say uh, fighter number one, Ken Shamrock standing up, and then they would read some bios about him. He's this tall, he weighs this much, and this what his fighting background is, and then he sits right back on down, and then they'll go on to like maybe next fighter Hoist Gracie, how tall he is, where he hails from, what his record is, and that kind of stuff, and that's how it was. Then they would pull out a bingo ball machine that had 8 names onto it, and then spin around like then first one, Frank Marcel. Boom, he's at number one. Spin it again, and there's like Frank Shamrock. Boom, number two. You find out the night before, less than 24 hours. You find out who the 7 other men, because no women were competing at this time. You find out who the 7 other men are first at this uh, little press conference, and then you as the fighter find out who your opponent is less than 24 hours as well. You know nothing, so you think about going at this blind. Again, the UFC had to go through a lot of educational process and this hardships. Because they do battle after battle, state after state with athletic commissions. They the nature because boxing didn't like to have it because it was like it's way more than boxing. It's boxing, it's kickboxing, it's Muay Thai, it's karate, it's kung fu, it's wrestling, it's jujitsu, it's everything all thrown into one, except that you're not on a normal matted surface. Now you're inside of a cage. So that again, it's like because movies like Mad Max and Thunderdome were out, and yet it's like 2 men enter, 1 man leaves victoriously. So there's a lot of just raw factors about it, and that time there was dubbed the NHB, which stood for No Holes Barred Era. 2 basic rules: no biting, no eye gouging, no
So
time limit. there was going to be an ultimate victory. And even then, on the eye gouging, they let that slide a little bit there as well. Because there was one match where Paul Varlins, known as what was he? He was like the polar bear. Okay, he was known as the polar bear. He ended up getting eye gouged a couple of times during the course of his match, and eventually lost eyesight in that eye. So, and was his opponent ever disqualified? Nope. So you think about that. I mean, and I actually kept a couple of the contracts from that time era that it stated right in smaller print at the bottom, in the event of your accidental death. They're not liable. I go, accidental death. The only two things you can't do is like bite me and stick a finger in my eye. You can take a person's life a few other ways without ever doing that. You can rip their esophagus out. You could, there's other things you can do. So it was the funny part again for my story. For like my very first match ever, I knew pay-per-view stuff like that. They weren't that strong. I mean, you had to go again. This will be education for a lot of people that are younger. You had to go to a major city in your state. Like I came from Michigan. You're not going to be able to see the UFC in little old Podunk, Coldwater, Michigan. No way. You got to go to Detroit. You got to go to Lansing. You got to go to a major city, and at a local movie theater, they will be playing it there. So now today, you can sit at home with your little iPhone and watch it from your iPhone. Yeah. So again, most people don't even know that time because they're just too young. They're too young, and most Americans again I'm a bash American, too stupid to remember.
Got you. Yeah, I agree. Well, before we touch upon, because you started going in an area that I was going to ask you next about your life growing up in Michigan, Coldwater, sure. Michigan. But before we go there, I want to ask you personally: do you feel like the UFC, the mixed martial artists of today, would they have lasted back in your time?
Not based on the rules of that. No. The only reason I say that because the compliment is the sport has evolved. You don't have the one-dimensional athletes like myself. I was just a wrestler. I did not have no jiu-jitsu background. I did not have no boxing or kickboxing background. So I in the early UFC no holds barred era, they would label the fighters as either a striker or grappler, and that striker meant boxer, kickboxer, Muay Thai, karate, kung fu. It just, and then that grappler was a judo, jiu-jitsu, and or amateur wrestler. I mean that's what it was. It's basically it was always like a striker versus a grappler is what the scenario would come up to. But as I said, the athletes, if you try to do the old school now with the current crop of competitors, although it would be exciting to watch, the level of skill sets has significantly risen. You've got strikers that can grapple with the best of the grapplers, and you got grapplers that can strike with some of the best of the strikers. So the sport has evolved a full 360 to where now you have unique individuals that are very good at both.
Gotcha.
As long as they can keep their noses clean and stay out of trouble, that's
yeah. That's another story. Okay. So, like you was touching before, so you was born and raised in Central Michigan,
yeah,
and living in both Montrose and Coldwater.
I lived in, well, I grew up. My parents lived in a couple of different homes, but most of my childhood, I'd say, especially when I got into the wrestling, was when my parents, basically, my father ended up buying my grandfather's property. My grandfather owned a 120-acre farm. My father basically bought that. He was the baby of 12 living children. I have to state it like that because on that same farm, there are a few babies that were born because during that time era, you didn't take them, you didn't pay to bury them at the cemetery. You just buried them on your property. And you stuck a couple sticks or whatever right there just to know, okay, this is where, try to have a little respect because this is where, a couple kids were buried at one point in time. But it just, again, most Americans can't remember those kind of time frames back to where the country came from. But so it's the unique thing is that it's a piece of property that has been 3 generations. My grandfather owned it, my father owned it, and now one of my nephews owns the farmhouse and basically 5 acres. But between my brothers and sisters and I, we own, basically about 100+ acres here of the tillable farmland and that. So, and the reality is, my brothers and siblings are getting older. So new documentations have got to take place because somewhere in the next, say, 20 years or less, people are going to start going bye-bye. And so and the thinking differently is foolish thought, and that's where I'm the person that said, okay, Dad only lasted till 73, Mom only went till 75. Oldest Severn right now is my brother Dave, who is basically about 18 months older than me. So he's basically, I'm 65, he's 67. So going up to maybe a max of 75 right now. Again, no one likes to think that they're going to be going that quickly, but whatever your parents' genes gave you, that's your foundation. Can you make changes? Sure. On how you take care of yourself, and we're talking about diet, exercise, and things that you do that you can change your stars. You don't have to be that sedentary person. Then that's what's probably wrong with most Americans is that we're sedentary. But again, I'm kind of digressing, but I'm just saying that the Severn clan, we need to get our shit in order here a little bit more because people are going to be dying somewhere in the next decade or so.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You're right. I guess that's what happens when you depend too much on the system and instead of, doing it
Nah,
yourself. And I know you have.
yeah, no, the system is broken and the system needs to
Yep.
be overhauled. And 2 key elements is called term limits and fact checking. And
Yeah.
the only person that would be against fact checking are the deceitful liars because fact checking should be there because the only person that would be against it, like I said, is the people that are trying to do something deceitful to you. Think about that. That's just common sense. And that's what good. I tell people, I come from a farm boy background. Common sense is not around, and that's why I ride with most of the time.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Sorry,
The followers are the.
I would just enjoy just get
Oh
my
no.
being able to breathe.
Oh no. Don't worry. Don't worry. Okay. So you also played basketball during your junior high school days.
Junior high school,
You was in.
only in 7th grade, I I sucked at basketball. But again, because it was such a big sport to watch on television. Kind of, you always had those visions of grandeur, but I was not coordinated enough to dribble a ball and look away and still actually have that ball underneath the palm of my hand. And so it was. I'll say it was what's I was riding the pine beans. I was sitting the bench, and that sucks. And I just happened to have a couple of my friends that a big flu epidemic had hit, and lots of
Mm,
people were out of commission. And a couple of my buddies that were on the wrestling team, they said, Dan, we've got a dual meet tonight. We need some more people to fill in weight classes. Can you come out and fill in a spot for us? I'm thinking I'm a strong, strapping, farm kid. Sure, I could throw bales of hair around. I could throw a human being around. Well, I got taught a lesson. I think I wrestled twice that night. I got beat both times, but at least I'm doing something. I'm not riding a pine. So I say that my basketball career kind of came to an end, and I went up for the wrestling team because I'm doing something. Again, people don't understand team sports like football, basketball, baseball, any type of sports like that. One of the problems I had with it is that if your dad is the coach, you're always going to get to play, no matter how bad you suck. And that's what I noticed in things. And what I like about the sport of wrestling is if you do a challenge match where you challenge me for my weight class and you beat me, guess what? You wrestle, I don't. It doesn't matter if I'm the coach's son or not. And that's what I like about the sport is it's it's the equalizer.
No nepotism involved in that one.
Yes, yes, yes.
There you go. Okay. So then, so then you you had a long history in Greco-Roman and freestyle wrestling.
Yeah.
Your
People that
amateur
don't
wrestling careers.
people don't understand what freestyle Greco is. In our junior high, high school, and on a collegiate level, that is known as folk style. United States is the only country that does folk style. The Olympic Games just concluded. In the Olympic Games, wrestling is conducted underneath freestyle and Greco-Roman. Those are the two international styles of wrestling. And the United States does not do all that well at freestyle Greco. We're always lucky if we win one gold medal and a couple people place. That's usually what it looks like, because all the foreign countries at an early age, that's all they're doing is freestyle Greco. You're an American wrestler. You've been doing folk style, junior high, high school, collegiately, to where when you finally graduate out of college, you're going to be right around that 21 years of age. And now your only opportunity to represent your country is in freestyle or Greco. And you've been doing folk style. And there is a big difference in the two styles. That's why I say that if America would simply just accept freestyle and Greco, the United States would dominate once again, because it is the land of opportunity and more athletes would be coming here to do it.
Mm, mm. And okay, and it was also noted that you won both sports national championships in 1976 and was named the outstanding high school wrestler in the nation. You care to talk about that?
Well, I mean, Frank, those were one of my goals. Well, first
Yep.
off, my choice had never had a state champion. Well, actually, I should go be back a little bit further. My freshman year in high school was no freshman had ever made the varsity team. So that was my goal my
Right.
freshman year. So fast forward, I made the varsity team my freshman year. I had a losing season, so by my sophomore year, I go, okay, I gotta have a winning season. So I did a whole lot better. And I say my freshman year, I went to my first summer camp and stuff like that. And each year, I was getting close to 50 matches in season, but then in the off season for spring and summer, I'd be picking up almost another 100+ matches, because I was wrestling freestyle, Greco, almost every week, and sometimes a couple of tournaments per weekend. And it didn't matter. And I was going different weight classes. I might go 198, 220 heavyweight. It didn't matter. I go any one of those weight classes, sometimes a couple of those weight classes, because I was trying to get matches in, because with more matches, I got more experience and I got better at it. To where again, I did hold like 8 national high school records simultaneously. No one has ever held 8 national records ever. I did. And again, I'm just that farm boy. That's again, I have 7 other brothers and sisters. Can I call you back? I'm doing a interview. Okay, bye. That was the big boss.
There you go.
As much as we all have to answer to a higher power.
That's it. That's
Okay.
it.
But,
Okay, so
I don't know what I was even saying at the time, but just go ahead, just go on with the next question, or repeat the same question, and I'll go right back into it.
okay. Well, before your 18th birthday, you was placed in the Olympics trials, and you was
Think about
inducted
that.
into the Arizona. Yep,
At
you
17
was
years of
inducted
age.
into the Arizona for
Yeah,
17 years. Okay.
yeah. I tried out for my first Olympic trials.
Hmm.
So it's like I had no place, no reason, but I tried, and now
Right.
I'm on these mats wrestling against men that I was reading about. It was like, wow, this is Ben Peterson, this is John Peterson, this is Russ Hellickson, this is all these greats that won silver medals, they won gold medals, and they were world championships and Olympic champions or Olympic runner-ups. I mean, it just and a 17-year-old kid is out there wrestling them. Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. You was also inducted into the Arizona State University Wrestling Hall of Fame. How was that like?
Well, again, well, to know that you went to your high school and you're a standout athlete there. But again, it's on two different levels. You're a standout athlete, but then you're also a decent person. That's really what you want to know. That there are some athletes that, let's face it, they're a horse's ass. Okay, and that's where it's gotten. I come from a good family. I had seven other siblings. I'm son number two on the totem pole. So, you know, did we have the best of everything? No. We would go to the Salvation Army. We would go to Goodwill. It's means like going. We thought it was cool. It's like it might not have been new, but it was new to us.
There you
So,
go.
but
There
that's
you go.
where lots of young people are spoiled. They think they're gonna have again this device, the laptop I'm on. We have a very spoiled culture in a lot of different ways, and it is very much a look at me, look at what I'm doing, me society. I'm thinking, dude, don't think of just yourself all the time. Think of others and how you're affecting them. You're a clog in the system right now, and are you doing your part to make the machine work properly and move forward, or are you one of the things that we have to slow the machine down and we got to remove some rust and some other stuff here because you're screwing up? We
There
and
you
let's
go.
face it, we have a lot of screw ups in our
Yep,
country
yep,
and society
yep.
right now. So
Oh yeah.
it's not
Oh
all
yeah.
it's not all government. It's a lot of it is what are our family values today? How
Oh
many
yeah.
people do have family dinners? How many? And at the family dinners, they don't allow the cell phone. They actually look at each other and they have conversations.
Without the device in the hand, you're so correct. So
Yeah,
correct.
there's a lot of things that are wrong with the United States, but there's no other country that's better than the United States. But there are some things that need to be corrected.
Hmm. Hmm.
And no, and I always tell people that we don't have to keep blaming things on other people, stuff like that. Sometimes look in the mirror. If you improve yourself, other people will see this and they'll see that shine out of you as well. And
And
then
in return, that would that correct them.
yeah, and but then it's like if you're on a bad path, you got to change your surroundings. You may have to change some of the friends that you've been hanging out with because if you're on a bad path, you usually are a product of your environment and your friends. Because again, I had I had friends that were, during the football season, I had friends that weren't on the team that say, "Hey, Dan, it's Friday night. Okay, after the football game, let's go out and let's get shit faced." Or and I'm like, "No, I gotta go. I gotta go wrestle the next hour. I gotta go do this. I mean, I have something I want to do and make of myself, and And then they went, "Hey, let's go get shit faced." And then it's like, then they hit you with the mail card. It's like, what are you, a pussy or something like that? And aren't you a man? And I go, oh no, I think I am a man. I think I'm an intelligent man. I go, and fast forward to today, or even back a decade or two, a lot of those same fellow classmates, stuff like that, they're in contact with me now, and they're like going, Dan, you were true to your colors. You stood by what you said, and look at you today. I'm not trying to say I'm better than anyone, but it's like if you have a goal in life and you want to achieve something, there are certain sacrifices you have to make to achieve these goals. And some of it is the naysayers that are saying to you, no, it's not going to work. And when you know in your heart, you can make it work. And Frank, we all have those naysayers, but are they people that they don't want to see you succeed? Because if you succeed, you might make them look bad. So sometimes they'll grab a hold of your shirt tail and try to pull you back, and you have to learn to brush them off. Not that you're trying to be mean to them. I'm still their friend and stuff like that. I still have high school teammates that, oh, that's part of my brotherhood. I got college teammates that's part of my brotherhood. I'll be in contact, and if they need some help, stuff like that. There is a real big bond between amateur wrestlers. There always has been. And I have high school teammates that they're still my friends to this day, and I got college teammates, and then different international teams that went abroad. They're part of my brotherhood.
Right. It's sort of like that saying with the crabs in the bucket. Nobody wants to see that person get out of their circumstances. They all try to bring you back in there stuff. So I definitely agree.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
sometimes it's just jealousy up there too. Okay? There's so many different things. Like I said before, a lot of times it's just if you succeed, you might make them look bad because they were the ones that were trying to pull you back into their crowd, knowing that no, you have higher standards for yourself. You want this opportunity. My whole aspect was, you know, 7 other brothers and sisters. How do I make it happen? Because mom and dad,
Right.
as much as they're working their asses off, feeding and clothing 8 kids, they can't send us to college. They don't have that deep of a pocket. How do I make it happen? That's where we have so many kids today think it's all about me, and I honestly look at college as a bit of a ripoff scam. You have a lot of high school counselors that will simply say, Frank Marcel, you should go to college. And the reality is, no. Upon high school graduation, I actually think that most high school students should take 1 to 2 years off and go get a job, go get a job, and work for someone that you hate, doing a job that you hate. And then when you go to college, are you going to are you going to screw up? No, because if you screw up and don't get that education, you may have to go back and work for that boss that you hated at that job that you hated. And I say that I don't say it to be mean. I tell people go into the military, give up 2 years of your life because the military will shape you up. Because you're gonna have other people yelling at you to make your bed, pick up after. Otherwise, it's KP duty, it's exercise, it's all kind. There's punishments, there's repercussions for not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And so it's like
Oh yeah.
you got two different routes. You can either go get a job for a couple of years, go with the military for 2 years. The thing about the military, if you go for a couple of years and come back out, then you can go to college on the GI Bill. So now at least you're a little bit more mature. You got your shit together a little more, and now you're gonna join the workforce, and you should be a little bit more as to what direction you want to go. I know that you're gonna have to give up 30 years of your life doing something, and hopefully you've saved up some money and you worked at a job that has a 401k or something like this, so that eventually you can retire and have an income even after you retire. As long as Uncle Sam isn't dipping his pan into
Oh
your
yeah.
pocket.
Oh, you already know. You already know. So
I don't know
I got a question.
about this Uncle Sam, but this Uncle Sam has never done nothing for me.
Yeah, neither for me. Quite a few of us. So question. You wrestled in Canada, Mexico, Brazil, Japan, England, and
Yeah,
several other
what you
countries.
mean right there? That
So
that was done. That was done early. I mean, literally, I've almost wrestled that in every country that has ever had a wrestling program. To go for back when you think about Germany, I actually have
mhm,
wrestled in both Germanys when there was an East and a West. You know how long ago that was? That was a long time ago.
mhm, mhm,
So to fly into
mhm.
West Germany and to be taken by bus to simply go, then you had to get out of the bus. You had to show your documentation, stuff like this, to see the Iron Curtain and the Berlin Wall. and then across
Hmm.
into East Germany. So again, and people, there's just Germany now.
Right. Right. Right.
So, but again, a lot of people don't understand this. They don't understand what communism is. They don't. Again, it's like I could beat up our government all day long because of what they're trying to. They're trying to push socialism and communism on us. I'm thinking, and you people don't even understand this. I go, why don't you go to a country that has had it in the past or is currently doing it right now and find out just how happy the people are? They're not.
Hmm. Exactly. You're right. You're right. You're right. So you've won a gold medal at the 1985 National Sports Festival, um, and a berth on the U.S. World Team. How was that like?
Oh, I mean, no, my as I said earlier, my amateur wrestling career it's been my opportunity for an education. It's been my opportunity to travel. I've been to every state in the United States, every state. And it's not easy getting
Mhm.
to Hawaii or Alaska. Those are the two hardest states to get to. And I've been to both of those, at least three, four times. But then you think about
Mhm.
that. How many people can say that most people, and this has been a statistic that I say, most people are born. They're raised, they work, they live, they die within about a 100-mile radius. There's so many people that have never been outside of their state.
Right. Right.
And that's where it's going to, and
There-
I bet the, I bet the every state.
it was noted that you went to Los Angeles as an alternate, and you saw a guy that you thought that you beat and win the gold medal, and it was really tough. It was really tough for you to swallow that. And you kept going on,
Yeah.
and in
The,
your
the, the
long
quick
career.
story. Yeah. The quick story about that is I really got screwed over in the Olympic trials wrestle offs because you had to you had to wrestle the number one and number two guy had to wrestle the best two out of three matches. My opponent beat me the first match. I beat him the second match, and in the third match, there was a volley that went through a topsy turvy type of thing to where the referees scored the points incorrectly. So in the final
Mm.
seconds, I think I'm losing, and I have to take risks that I would not normally have to. Whereas if they scored it correctly, I would have won. And
Wow.
so, and that was the one and only time that they actually video recorded the Olympic trials, and I have that VHS tape
Oh
that
wow.
I yeah I actually have that tape, and I showed it because it was so fresh and new. I knew other I FILA is just a world governing body, but FILA official that he didn't know about the trials stuff like that. I said I wanted you to view a match and score it because he was a friend of mine, a top FILA official. He viewed it. He said you won. He said not only did you win, he said you pinned your opponent because he even saw in there because he saw where a couple of the other referees called for the pin, but they didn't give me the
Mm.
pin. I got screwed over,
Mm.
and so it's like, and that's why I said it was tough for me to swallow because instead of being the competitor out there and winning the gold medal, because the guy that went in my spot, he did win the gold medal, and everybody he wrestled, I had pinned in under 1 minute.
Yeah, yeah.
So should I have won the gold medal? Oh yes, because everyone that he wrestled, I had already pinned under 1 minute. I was an animal at one time, Frank. I know I'm just an old fart.
Ah, you still got it. Stop it.
But again,
Oh man.
but
So
those are things that some people would let that just eat them up. But I use it as a motivator for myself. It's kind of like I was looking at retiring, but it made me in the Ultimate Fighting Championships. They were blown away that a man at my age, because I was 37, closer to 37 than I was to 36. And they saw me, and they couldn't believe, like, dude, when they would say, "Let's go back in your prime." I said, none of you people ever saw me in my prime. My prime was from 1984 to 1986. I had a 2-year sabbatical of hate. Frank, if you walked on that mat with me during those 2 years, I was going to destroy you. I was on a vengeance because of hate, because I got screwed over. I got screwed out of one of my biggest opportunities. I was primed up like that from the 84 Olympic gold. But again, I look at, because of what did go wrong, I didn't let it eat me alive, but it propelled me onto other things. I kept going in my sport. And then, like I said, I went into other things. I ended up going into professional wrestling. I went into the mixed martial arts, or what everyone was calling UFC fighting, because it was the first company, and no one didn't know what no holds barred was, or they didn't know. They just said, like, "What is this Ultimate Fighting Championship stuff?" Yeah, two guys climb into the cage. They're bare knuckled. They're like punching, their head button, their knee in, and it was pretty crazy. I always tell
And
people,
I,
they tell you to wear a cup. Okay, it's actually an option. They highly recommend wear a cup.
oh, yeah, yeah. As if that's gonna help.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, so I mean, after that situation, I know you was introduced to the UFC, as you just finished saying.
Yeah.
Um, you was holding more than 100 in total, as far as fights.
Records, championship titles. Yeah, I mean, no, when it comes, like, because one of the records there is that I have 100 plus different records and our titles to my credit.
Okay.
That, I mean, again,
Okay.
that's a lot. You got, there are guys that they've won. Like I said, I always tell people, I go, I don't have that Olympic gold medal, and that was one of the things that I really
Mhm.
wanted. So, I,
Mhm.
but and that'll never happen now, because I'm a 66-year-old man now. That's not gonna happen. That ship has sailed. So I've had to learn to kind of, like, okay, I have to sit back and just let them know that, okay, let's go. But Frank, I always tell people that I'm still like the alpha male of senior citizens. So I Father Time is the all-time winner. None of us are going to get out of the game of life alive, but I have lived a life that very few people very few people will really never ever know about, because all of these social media things, stuff like that, did not exist back then. And now, because I have all these lot of older matches on VHS tapes, 8 millimeter, 16 millimeter. I mean, these things are, unless I get them converted over to the digital age, which, I mean, there are companies out there that can take all these tapes and stuff like that and can convert them. But will I ever get time enough to do that? Because, as I state, I'm not going to sit around. Frank, you've known me for a number of years. Dan Severn doesn't sit around.
Mhm.
I stay active
Nope.
and I keep pursuing. I still have, I've got my planner here. I'm
Yeah, I
working on,
remember.
I, and if you saw my room area, I got papers and piles of all these different projects I'm working on simultaneously. I'm working on a project for the country of India right now. I got, I
Wow,
have,
nice,
I got countries reaching out to me
nice,
to help them in
nice.
different areas. So it's like going, can I help? Yes, I can. But again, we all only have so much time. You only have so much time that you can do because of all the things that you have. So it's like the hardest part is, sometimes people think Dan Simmons kind of a little bit of a funny daddy because I don't go out and party and drink and things of nature. Well, again, first off, I always tell people I don't like the taste of beer. Now, Frank, again, I don't know. Do you drink beer?
No, I don't drink beer, but I'll have occasionally like a hard drink, like
Okay,
vodka or whatever. But that's
but
once in a blue.
but the question is, why don't you drink beer?
That's not my thing. That
You
was,
don't like,
you know what
like
it
the
is.
taste.
When
You
when I,
don't, you don't like the
when I
taste.
was younger, I'll tell you a story behind that. I was always curious about beer as a young child, and my dad used to always drink a Miller Lite. So what he
Uh-huh.
did one day, poured a drop of Miller Lite inside the cap, and he gave me the cap. And I tasted, oh, it was disgusting. It was the worst thing I ever tasted.
Yeah.
So from that point on, when you mentioned beer to me, it just converts me back in that those times of that taste. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't do
Well,
that.
most guys that I know, they will always say that they hated the taste of beer in the beginning. And I go, well, why did you keep drinking if you hated it? They're like, well, that's what it's peer pressure. And I'm thinking, dude, it's like going, I'll say, the first time I tasted, first time I tasted like apple cobbler pie or something like that, loved it. Didn't have to acquire taste for it. It's kind of going. It's like I despise. I did. I've tried beers before. They're
Right.
they're disgusting tasting, and everyone says you have to acquire. I go, are you acquiring it, or are you killing off taste buds? You know.
That's yeah, you're right. You're right
And
about
I
that.
should put
You're
it this
definitely
way:
right about
it's kept me out of trouble because it probably wouldn't be a good thing for dad son to be drinking and be out on a Friday or Saturday night.
oh
I mean,
no
that's
no.
where they're. I mean, but think of how many athletes that has happened to.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, we can get into that too. Um, so you also held a U.S. national record for victories by pin from 1976 to 1992. Now, that's something. That's definitely something.
Yeah, that is. I mean, again, look how many years that is.
That's yeah, big span, huge span.
What one of my
And
right, this on the same subject, but a little bit differently. One of my greatest achievements is the fact that I have four other brothers, one older one, and then the three younger ones. And I've been on various teams to where to win side by side with each of my brothers. So that was pretty cool to be on various teams and to be with each of my brothers on teams. And then one of the coolest part is I had one of my sons, his name is David, to actually he followed in the path of wrestling. And he was a two-time state champion as well for a team known as a school known as Bronson and located in Bronson, Michigan. So Bronson High School is where he went to, and but I had to change him from the Coldwater school system to the Bronson, like 10 miles away, because I
right,
had there was a coach at the Coldwater school that thought he knew everything, and my son was already the alpha male in the room as a freshman. Now, Frank, if you're the best person in the room, who's going to make you better? You're going to make them better, but who's making you better? And my son happened to think that he was all that, and he didn't make it out of districts, so I had to let him soak a little bit there, and then I set him down, and then I simply asked him, David, what would you like to do? And he said all the things that a father and a coach would want to hear. And I go, David, you can achieve your goals, but are you willing to pay the price? That price is spending some extra time practicing. It's following a regimen that your father is going to lay out for you, to where a couple days a week you're gonna have to get up earlier, come out to my training facility, work out with your pops for about an hour, get showered and get out to school, head to school, and then I'll be at practice at your school, to where
right.
I had to find a school. Again, I found Bronson School because I had a good rapport with the coach. I told the coach, I said, I'm willing to move my son over here. I said, but I go, I come with the package because I'm
Mhm.
here as a concerned father, but I'm also here as a coach. I will I will work with my son, and and then I will also work with any one of the additional wrestlers in the room who ask for help. Otherwise, I will simply move on. because I
Got
know
you.
that is my skill set. Frank, I'm good at the sport of wrestling. I'm good at watching you and what you do naturally, and then to make little nuanced changes to where it will make you that much better. I may never remember your name, but I will know exactly what you're good at skill wise and what you're vulnerable skill wise. And literally,
Oh,
I was involved with Bronson's programs for 2 years. My son was a state champion 2 years in a row, undefeated. They never had a wrestler that was undefeated for 2 years in a row. And to win, well, I think they had one other guy that was actually a two-time state champion, but to go undefeated 2 years in a row. And the
mhm.
coach just saw the dedication that my son had. But again, he saw how I was actually bringing in men, former wrestlers that are now men. They actually work jobs, but they're still men. But then I'd say, okay, Frank, you're gonna go out there wrestle my son. My son's a sucker for the headlock. And I'm just using that for example. I go hit him with a couple headlocks. I go back to him with the headlock a couple times, then show him how to defend the headlock. Because sometimes he's not gonna listen to dad because he looks at me and goes, "You're just dad. What do you know about the sport?" So I still I had this father-son relationship, but now I gotta have. So you go out there and you hit him with a couple headlocks. And then you're like, okay, David, this is what you're doing. Then when practice is all done and he showered up and we're driving back home, he's like, Frank showed me how to defend the headlock. It's kind of like Moses and the burning bush. I don't care how you got the message, but you got the message. I just had to send it to a different disciple. That's all. So,
There you go.
that was a proud moment for me, simply to see the happiness of him winning. The first time, his first state championship, I told him, I said, that all during the season. I probably will not be at any of your Saturday meets because I'm off making a paycheck.
Correct.
And I said, but if it's happening during the week, I'll be at some of your dual meets and stuff like that. But no tournaments ever take place during the week. They'll happen on weekends. I said I will not be at districts. You'll get through those. I won't be at regional. You'll get through those. But I will be at the
Mhm,
state meet for you. But then he had his little paper, so he had his list of goals. He had to look at his list of goals every morning, so he stayed on track. He had to look at them every night, and then I actually had this little poem called "The Match Promise" that I wrote. Gosh, now probably 40 some odd years ago, but that he had to recite there as well. So the funny part was, I'm at his what would be his final match of his career.
okay.
It was, yeah, final match of his career. He's like, it's first time ever I saw him nervous. I go, Dave, why are you nervous? He goes, Dad, he goes, this guy's really good. I said, what's his record? Well, he's 54-4. Well, I should say this was David's junior first state championship in his junior year. And again, I asked him, well, what's his record? He was 54-4. And you know what? I hit myself. I think it was like, I'll say 27-0, because because he switched schools, he had to wait half the season out, and he had to start in the second half of the season. So he had to dress out and just sit there on the bench knowing he can't get in. He played football knowing he'll never play a single football game his junior year. He practiced every day and never played a single game. Talk about, what does that say about him? That speaks volumes. That speaks volumes.
Yeah.
He did play his senior year, but not during his junior year. He practiced every day, and some of the other football players were like going, "Come on, there, Severn. Well, why you gotta hit us and tackle so hard?" I make it, and the coach said it the best, because the football coach said, "I go, guys, you don't understand. This is his Friday night football game. It's practice here for him. He's not going to be in the game because he relocated from one school." So I said, if anything, he is making you guys better. I didn't have to say it. His coach said it to him. But again, getting back to the story, I'm at the
Mhm.
state meet. He's saying this kid's really, really, really good. And I make the comment, what's the score? He's 54-4. Okay, you're whatever, 27-0. And I asked him 2 or 3 times. He goes, Dad, he goes, what are you trying to say? He said, I'm saying the same thing. He goes, I said, your opponent is 54-4. I go, he's been beat 4 times. Somebody broke him physically. Somebody broke him mentally. I go, you're 27 and oh, you have not been defeated. You have not been mentally broken. You have not been physically broken. I go, you're the scariest cat walking on that mat, and your last name happens to be Severn. That's worth 2 points. Spend those points wisely out there. It's like, and I just fired him on up. I said, you get out there and you kick his ass. And as they announce his name, we're walking towards the mat, and it's a long walk. And I'm close behind him, and I start reciting that poem, The Match Promise, behind him. And literally, Frank, the hair was standing up on the back of his head. It's like he was so pumped up and ready that he went out, he won. And like I said, that was his junior state title, and then I should say during his junior his state title, and then in his senior year, he just mowed through everybody. So, and it was again what the coach at the banquet just said a lot of really very nice things about Dave and his career and what a joy he had just watching him materialize. But then he said the work and dedication. But he said, but he had a father that came in and just gave his heart and soul to his son. So
That's what it's all about. No.
yeah,
Very good. Very good.
pass it on the lineage.
Okay. Well, there you go. That's it. So after completing your degree in the program and graduated, you entered numerous competitions from 1982 to 1994 that took you to Japan, Hungary, Cuba, France, and Turkey on each trip. You captured other titles. What were some of the titles that you was able to, and how was it like?
Yeah, you just name it. I mean, Frank, that's where I tell people like my very first time ever going to the country of Turkey. I'm 17, maybe. No, I would have probably just turned 18 years of age. During my junior year. So again, no, I've been 17. So now we're supposed to be wrestling other age group wrestlers, which means 16 to 18 years of age. My first opponent I'm wrestling in Turkey is a like 35-year-old military man. Fully aged through, but he's military. So he's been done hand-to-hand combatives and stuff like that. And he just this mean-looking, muscular, fully developed man. And here I am. I'm just still a man child at 17 years of age, and he's got this buzzed out haircut, just meanness and ugliness, and he's just stalking back and forth like a caged animal. Can't wait to get a piece of this weenie looking American. And again, you got to realize this is in the early 70s. I've got longer hair, dark hair, stuff like that. No, minus the mustache. And I'm out there wrestling this guy, and he does a collar tie where he reaches to grab the back of my head, but then he grabs a wad of hair. And literally he pulls it back, and then he headbutts me. He just like grabs my head back, headbutts me, splitting my eyebrow, and then pulls a wad of hair out of my head. Matches back then were 3-minute periods, so it's 9 minutes worth of wrestling. This happens in the opening 1 minute. You did not have blood pathogen scares back then of, what's in your system and stuff like that. Basically you wrestled with a handkerchief inside your singlet to where you pulled off, if you had a bloody nose, you pulled it, you wiped the nose, you shove it right back in, you keep wrestling. There was no timeouts like there are now. Now they timeouts and they'll pull out things and they'll shove it up your nose and disinfect the mat. And it's almost like a 4 or 5 minute process that what they're doing. So it was just what they call total domination of wrestling there that you just kept on going. So I mean, that's where I'll say that's when the beast type of aspect kicked into me, because once he headbutt me and stuff like that, and then that's like going, oh, you son of a gun, So I like, boom, I speared him with a hard double leg, and he goes on down because I know I hurt him in the stomach, and he you don't want to go on your back, so he turns, he falls to his stomach, stuff like that. And there's a technique known as the crossface, where he put the bony portion of forearm right across the soft beak, bam, I pop it right across his face, breaking his nose, and I got blood pouring out on my arm because I broke his nose. Well, then he bites into my forearm. He's trying to take a chunk of U.S. grade A out of my forearm, and that's when the cheese slips off my cracker. It's like going, I'm going to put you out of your misery here right now. And I grab my fork and I roll it because I'm trying to shove this piece of cartilage and stuff like that into the black hole of space known as his brain. And they can bury him on the sand dunes. I don't care. I'm hammering snap, crackle, pop. The referee's blowing the whistle. He's trying to pull my arm out of it. As I stand up, I'm angry. And the referee's looking at me. He's penalizing me for an illegal maneuver. I'm showing him the fang marks in my forearm. He penalized my opponent for an illegal maneuver. This at the end of the first period. He sends his opponent, my Turkish foot, back to his corner. He sends me back to my corner. I'm a bloody mess. He's a bloody mess. You know, his coach, as I'm getting cleaned up over on my side, he's getting cleaned up over there. But his coach is so angry at his athlete because this weenie-looking American is beating him. His coach pulls a stick about the thickness of a broom handle and proceeds to beat his athlete. Now think about that. You're wrestling a match and you're losing, and then in between you basically you got like, well, I think it's like a 1 minute break in between, and then your coach is beating you with a broom handle stick to motivate you. And that's where I go, look at the pussy Americans that are out there like, oh, he was harsh talking to me. He's like, he told me to keep going. You know, at least he wasn't beating you with a broomstick. Come on now. Jesus. So again, that's where I always tell people that with a story like that, and again, there were coaches, again, I don't know if any of these coaches are still alive, but there were coaches that saw this. They were supposed to be videotaping this. So there should be a videotape of that. But again, is that on 8mm? Is that on 60? I don't know. Because have I ever seen the videotapes of it? Nope. I lived that experience to where it's etched in stone up here.
Yeah, there you go. Nobody could take that away from you.
Yeah.
Okay, so you tried your hand in coaching at being a wrestling coach at ASU.
State. Yeah, Arizona State, Michigan State. Yep. But I broke bread in coaching literally by my sophomore year in high school. I was starting to coach because my high school wrestling coach, a wonderful man, he's long gone, very, very proud to have been a part of the Montrose Wrestling. His name was Tom Castile. But the thing is, if you were to have ever saw him, you would never think of him as a great coach because he stood about 5'5", 5'6", and weighed probably about 325 to 350 pounds, somewhere in that range. So he was built like a little butterball turkey. And I say that as a term of endearment. I'm not saying this to be mean, but I'm just giving it. Okay, he physically could not get out there to show you technique because he was round. Okay. I think that was the first time I seen someone that he drank Diet Coke all the time. And I'm thinking, I don't think that Diet Coke is working.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So, but he recognized talent in the room. So if you were the best guy at a certain type of takedown, you taught that technique. And he'd say, okay, Severn, you went to camp. What did you learn? I go, Coach, I learned this thing called Kratos. Well, come on here and teach us Kratos. And literally by walking out in front of your other peers and have to describe how to do a move, that's how I learned to become better, because I got so good to where I never looked at you as a human being anymore. I just looked at you as fulcrums and levers. How do I snap action to know that you're actually, as I snap your head down, you're going to pull away my back down, I'm going to fire right back in to get a single or a double, or the actions, reactions, and create incredible amounts of leverage. So I know when did we get on, Frank? Again, I'm not trying to. I'm enjoying what we're doing here, but we started around.
But 9. It was like 9:35. Say.
No, we got it. No, I think.
What?
Because I'm at the get off here in a little bit. I got to make a couple more phone calls here before, but we can do a part 2 or whatever. But I know we're getting to it, but. I thought I just read. I have a way of. I always tend to try to write something down to where I know I did. I just when we started. I feel bad, but I've got to make a couple more phone calls. But then I need to.
That's fine.
Get my beauty rest because tomorrow is another day, and we're at the Dark History Comic-Con here at convention, and I got to be set up and ready to go, and I got to kill it
Olympic.
because it's
Yep.
day number 2, and I stole the show today, and I need to steal the show tomorrow.
Nice. I'm happy to hear.
But this again, this where
Okay.
I have two. Again, this we're just to talk about that for a moment. I put out. I've got lots of belts, but I only ever travel with 2 of the belts. I travel with a professional wrestling title belt and a UFC title belt because with the recent merger with TKO, you have the UFC and the WWE underneath the same umbrella. TKO. The biggest sports merger in sports history. What, a $22 billion merger. Who's the first cat to do both? Me.
Yep. You open up the doors. You open up the doors.
Yeah, there's opportunities. There
Real
always have
real
been.
fast.
Yeah, no, there's always been opportunities for wrestlers in the past, but there's a lot more opportunities now because I've helped led that way, and by doing interviews like this, to let wrestlers know upon uh, graduation, they could go into professional wrestling, they can go into mixed martial arts. They could be working on this at the same time they're in college, and while they're in college, as of this past fall, there's a new program that has been implemented on the collegiate level where you can be a highly recruited athlete, and they're just simply going to say, Frank, Marcel, you're a highly recruited high school athlete. We would like to give you, on top of a full scholarship, we'd like to give you an additional $100,000 that will be paid out over the next 4 or 5 years in case you redshirt 1 year, or the 4 or 5 years of your career. And then you can have a stellar freshman year. And now another college simply says, hey, Frank Marcel, you did so good your freshman year at what XYZ college here that we want to offer you $200,000 to come over to our college. And there's no penalty in this where there used to be you could be recruited by another team, but if you switched, you had to sit out for 1 year. There was a penalty. So the thing that I don't like about this is that the colleges with the deepest pockets are going to prevail. So that's what I feel bad about. Yeah, if it feels like if as long as you know that you're going to be slapped on the wrist and you have to sit out a year, okay, yeah, you can switch at that point in time. But what I don't like is it's going to hurt the sport overall because, as I stated, only the programs that have the deepest pockets are going to prevail, and then you're going to have. I mean, as it is, Penn State is one of those wrestling programs that they are a dynasty already, and they're just going to become that much more of a dynasty.
Well,
I should
before I
say
let you go,
Iowa is the same way. I mean, they had a farmer that I think left the wrestling program, some ridiculous like $100 million or something like that. So that program will never want for money. So I mean, but they're just like I said, there's just very few schools that will be there, and I would like to know that there's opportunities for lots of wrestlers, both male and female, because female aspect of amateur wrestling is growing at leaps and bounds more than what the boys are, but there's still that same opportunity on both sides. So, but if you could remember where we're at and we could pick up afterwards, there could be a part 2 we could do at this.
Oh yeah, definitely,
Okay.
definitely. I just real fast. I just wanted to
Yeah.
find out your thoughts because I know there's a lot of mixed martial arts getting involved in professional boxing. And what's your thoughts on Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson?
Well, I mean, as soon as you say something like that, I want Mike Tyson to win. Always I say that is because, well, first off, I'm a fan of Mike Tyson's. Jake Paul is a social media influencer. He's a social media influencer. Here's 3 quick questions. How old is Jake Paul? And how tall is he? And what does he weigh? Did you know
For
that offhand?
this one, it's gonna. Yeah, I don't know offhand 100% as far as I know he's in his 20s, probably late 20s, and he's gonna be fighting within the 200 pound. range. He put on weight for this particular fight,
Oh, so
as
he's
far
he's
as weight.
he's normally like 180 pounds or something like that, or lighter.
Yeah, yeah, yep. Normally,
Well, see,
yep.
well, what I don't like about Jake Paul is he's an influencer that has been cherry picking these different MMA guys, and these MMA guys that are not nowhere near as good of a striker as what he is. He and his brother are good athletes. They spend a lot more time. They're social media influencers. They, as far as I know, they don't really work a real job. Their job is this social media stuff. And when you look at how much money they have made by cherry picking these certain MMA guys that they have fought and either have knocked out or beaten, sure, they gave that MMA guy the biggest payday of their career, but they took the MMA guy out of MMA and they put him into the sport of boxing to their strength. It would be just like me saying, well, I challenge Jake Paul to a submission grappling match to where, again, you say he's in his 20s.
Yeah,
I'm in my 60s. I'm 66. I'm basically 3 times his age.
correct, correct,
So,
correct.
uh, would that be fair for Jake Paul to pick on this old man? Is is that
No,
marketable? Is that marketable, Frank? Knowing that,
well,
I call bullshit on what I call bullshit because it's like, again, it's that concept. It's like, you know, and to me, it's like going unlimited time and any and all submission holds are legal.
right.
So again, that's where, you know, I I'm on the other side of the mountain. I'm going down. I mean, he's a young man. He's still going up the slope. I'm well on the other side. I mean, it's, you know, I got some artificial parts already put into my body, stuff like that. So, but again, that's where
Uh, uh,
I don't. So when you ask, if I hear about that, my first thought, I want Tyson to fight because of what Jake Paul has done. I mean, I take my hat off. Very strategic move, stuff like that on his part. But again, he's cherry picking. And I think the part that he thinks is justifiable is like, okay, but Frank, I also gave you your best payday so that you can wipe away your tears on these hundreds of thousands of dollars that you walked away with that you would have never made in your MMA career. So it's like a backhanded compliment, in a lot of ways. So it's the UFC now. I mean, if you're a main event athlete, you can walk away with a nice purse, but you still, just how we started this interview, you better be an athlete that is intelligent about how you take your money, what you put your money into, so that when you finally do come to retirement, you still have something left to retire to. So.
correct, correct.
So again, I
Definitely
try to,
agree.
I don't try to be mean to people, but it's kind of like going, but there's sometimes it's kind of like, well, at least sit up straight and pay attention, and you know. But again, the Paul brothers overall, I'll say they've been good because they've awakened a lot of people to know that you can use this social media in a lot of different ways. Um, it's just some of the tactics I think are just a little, just not very kind. That's all. Just not very kind. And I
Gotcha.
tell people that you're going to be remembered not for your wealth, because that doesn't matter. What it all boils down to is what kind of a person were you? And I know, because I've been asked this question a few times. They're like, what do you want to be remembered for, Dan Severn? I thought about that. And the first time they asked for a question, I said, let me ponder that for a day, because I go, you're asking very, very definitive. It's like, what do you want put on your tombstone? What will you always be remembered for? And I got back to the guy, I said, I only want to be known for one thing. I made a difference. That's all. I made a difference. I'm trying to make that same thing even into my children's lives. I'm trying to make that into my grandchildren's lives, because they've seen basically an absentee parent out of me, because I worked Monday through Friday, working my normal job, my training facility, out of my property. But when does those classes take place? They all take place in the evening when everyone is out of school or off work. Then Dan Severn goes away on the weekends and does his professional matches, and then he does his cage fights. When do all family functions take place? Usually during the weekends. And so I'm gone every weekend, bringing home the bacon, making sure that the roof stays over their head, there's food on the table. They don't, as a young child, they don't understand that. As they're older now and they're starting their own families, now they're starting to realize, how did Dad do it? Dad didn't get a whole lot of sleep. Dad didn't get a whole lot of training. Dad went without insurance for so many years, knowing that I had to make myself invincible mentally and physically. Can't get hurt because I got no health insurance. Every time that my kids went to the dentist, that was called cash out of pocket. So when their teeth were coming out, and they're saying, well, I'm gonna put this underneath my pillow for the tooth fairy. I'm thinking, I want to put it underneath my pillow. I need to shake down the tooth. I need to shake down the tooth fairy.
Yeah.
So again,
Don't get enough credit, man.
On that last little note there, Frank, let's call it first for tonight, and you got a lot of good material, and we'll go to part 2 at another time.
Okay, not a problem.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank. Have a good evening.
Take care.
Yeah, bye.
You too.